Thanks for stopping by the Aussie Shed, ladies and gentlemen. Today we paint and reassemble the shop air compressor. So let's do it. Time for a bit of reassembly work. I might start by just putting this pulley on, and I'll just do this in a temporary fashion. I'll just slip it on to a point where I can work with it, because I did notice that the pulley was set to a certain position so that it lined up with the pump head pulley. So rather than tap it on too far, and then have to try and get it off, from memory it was a bit of the shaft was hanging out, so we'll just set him flush, and that'll do as a temporary measure. Might as well just take it over and set it up on the air tank. Oh, she's quite heavy. Time for the pump head. Time for a bit of belt work. Alrighty. We'll just tap this pulley back in to get our alignment right. And it found its own spot. Isn't that great? Maybe a tad more. Maybe a tad. I think that's it. I think that's our spot. Okay, we can lock this in position now. Everything seems to be lining up very well. Very nicely indeed. Beautiful. I'll just throw the tank drain valve on. I'm just using a ball valve on here. Reason being, it makes it really easy for me to just hook up a hose onto it and run it outside of the shed anytime I want to drain the tank. Save me having to dick around and get filthy rusty water all over the shed floor. Beautiful. Wheels are on now too. Not often companies get their name put on the wheels anymore, is it? Check valves next. it's called, but throw him in next. The skinny hose Duvalaki. That'll do. Alright, we'll throw the pressure switch in next. You can see I'm not using thread tape on this. I'm just using some of this Permatex high performance thread sealant. Good stuff. That's the worst thing about using thread sealant instead of tape. It can be a little bit messy if you put too much on, which I tend to do quite often, because you'd rather have too much than not enough. Cleans off pretty easy. Good job though. Throw on the other end of this guy. He shall not be named. Reconnect all the wiring. The gauge to go and we can hook it up. This is a new gauge I have here, ladies and gentlemen. Liquid filled, all stainless steel. Not a bad little unit. It is an import, but what are you going to do? We're super cheap. That's the original gauge, still functioning fine. Quite knocked around just from, you know, being in a vehicle. No glass. So I thought, well, she's getting a rebuild, and just to dress her up a bit, a new gauge is in order. Hopefully it'll be accurate and reliable. It's not the main gauge that I use. The main gauge where I get all my references for the pressure regulator up on the bench, but it's always good to have a gauge on your compressor. So let's get this sucker on. Well folks, that's pretty much it for the compressor. All that's left to do is just get it off this little work table, throw it back under the bench, hook the air line for the shed up to it and pump her up. She's looking pretty damn sweet. You can see I've actually taken the belt guard off. Due to it being quite damaged from being in a vehicle, it had a lot of stuff smash up against it over the years. It was held together with bloody self-tappers and cable ties, and it was just a bit of a mess. And where it's positioned under the bench, this face of the compressor is right up against the wall. There's no way anyone can get even close to it. There's nothing in the proximity that could get tangled up in it. It's in a pretty super safe place. Which is really the only circumstances I'd consider having no belt guard on it. I may even at a later stage make a new belt guard for it, but at this stage I think it's pretty sweet where it is, and I don't think it's going to be an issue. At some point in the near future I'm going to fabricate a new air cleaner housing and incorporate some sort of a silencer in it, because she is a little bit noisy on the intake side, just because there's almost nothing there. There's just a small piece of foam. And when she kicks up, just that sort of intake noise of the air being drawn in there is quite loud, and I figure I could considerably reduce the noise by just building a larger box and putting a larger foam element, or adapting some other sort of an air cleaner or something to it that will help silence it a bit. But at this stage, that's pretty well it. We'll get it off this table and get it under the bench. In we go. Alright, I'll just go and hit the isolator and we'll pump her up. Fortunately, when I wired the Aussie shed, I ran a separate power circuit for the air compressor, and my subboard is right next to the door. So when I come in and out of the shed, I can just flick the compressor on and off with a switch on the subboard right next to the door. Save me having to, get under the bench and turn the bloody thing on and off, because most of the time I leave it off unless I'm using it. So let's kick her up and see if this motor's going to run alright. Sounds pretty good, ladies and gentlemen. I think we've got a success. The gauge appears to be climbing. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We are back in business. Bloody ripper. Thanks for watching. Bye now.